Hi again, this is Sarah Bell. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can use the ArcGIS Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud extension to automatically replace the default symbology in your downloaded maps with your own personal artwork from your Adobe Illustrator libraries. I'm going to demo making a news media map for a fictional newspaper. This pretend newspaper has a strict set of style guides, so things like colors, patterns, point symbology like road symbols, they're all going to be the same across all the maps that get published for this newspaper. To make this map, I'm going to be using the vector street map data that's available to all Maps for Creative Cloud users. And for the marathon race route, I'm going to be adding a KML file from my local machine. I'm starting here in the Mapboards window, which is where all map creation in the Maps for Creative Cloud extension begins. This news media map that I'm making is for a marathon race in Wenatchee, Washington, which is a great city located in central Washington state. So I'll go to the search and I'll type in Wenatchee. And it will take me to the city of Wenatchee, Washington. This map that I'm demoing should be considered unofficial and only for the purpose of this demonstration. I'm going to zoom out a little so I can see the full extent of where the marathon takes place. Toggle on the Mapboards tool and then draw a map board right around the area where the marathon occurs. I'm going to type in, and I'm going to set the level of map detail a little bit closer in. And there we go. Now I've created my map extent. Let's go over to the compilation window. And that's where you can add all sorts of map data that can be downloaded as editable artwork in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to add that marathon route KML file by just going to Add Layer from File and going to the place on my computer where the KML file is saved. Let's click Open. If I go to the Contents pane and look at the map preview, I can see that the race route has been added to my map along with the mile marker points. Now I'm going to show you how you can add the vector street map data provided to all ArcGIS Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud users. Notice this raster base map that sits in the background of my map right now. I'm going to swap that base map out for the vector database map that's available in this extension. The reason I want to do that is that I want to download this map into Illustrator and then give it a custom look for my newspaper by editing vector artwork, and I can't do that with this raster base map. Notice this bottom layer in my contents called Topographic. That lets me know that I'm using Esri's Topographic Raster Base Map. By clicking this button next to the layer name, I get a lot of different base maps that I can choose to use in my map. These two base maps, the Natural Earth and Vector Street Map items, are vector base maps that are provided to ArcGIS Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud users. I'm going to choose Vector Street Map, and it will be added to my map. So my next step is to download this map. Okay, so it looks like my map has been downloaded. Let's check it out. Because we are replacing the Vector Street Maps road shields, we will need to convert those shields into outlines so they can be recognized by an Illustrator library. So I'm going to create two new layers, one for each of the highway shield layers that I'll be replacing with my library items. I'll expand the US Highway Shields layer and the State Highway Shields layer to show the reason for this. These shields are made from text, and the symbols replacement needs to run on shapes or outlines. So I will create two new layers, 1 and 2. Let's give them a new name so we know what we're working with. And the parts that make up these shields, we have the number 2 text for the actual number of the highway. We have this character, which makes up the shield, the outline of the shield, and then we have this character, which makes up the fill of the shield. I'm just going to grab the fill part of all of these shields for the US Highway shield and then drag them into my new US Highway layer. And the State Highway shield, we have a set of characters for the number, a character that makes up the outline, and a character that makes up the fill. Again, I'm just going to drag the character that makes up the fill from the State Highway shield and drag them into my new State Highway layer. Now the way to convert text into outlines in Illustrator is just to select all of the text you want to convert, go to the Type menu, and create outlines. Now if I select this, you can see in the US Highway that this is a compound path now. It's not a character. There are a few layers in this map that I don't need for my newspaper map, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those. And another thing I like to do with this vector street map artwork is to take these nested layers of all the transportations, for example, and drag them up so that they are on the first order of layer hierarchy. Now I have this empty transportation nested layer and I can go ahead and delete it. I'm going to collapse these There are 3 steps to set up the ArcGIS Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud extension so that you can automatically replace the symbology. The first step is to rename the layer to match the Adobe Illustrator library item name. The second step is to turn on the processes. And the third step is to point to the Adobe Illustrator library in the Maps for Creative Cloud settings. So now I'm going to go back to the Locator Map Symbols Adobe Illustrator library to retrieve the library item name. So let's expand the Symbols panel. I'm going to be using the running race mile marker, the state highway/freeway, and the state route generic point symbols from the Symbols library. So I just need to make sure that the layers that I want to replace with these symbols have the same name that these symbols do in this Illustrator Symbols library. And let's check out the brushes. I also need to make sure that any linear map features that I'm going to be replacing with these brushes are renamed to exactly match the brushes in these libraries. Now let's go over to the swatches library. I'm going to use each one of the swatches listed here, water body, land, pale yellow, and parks, in my map. Now let's go back to the downloaded map. I'm going to replace this mile marker symbol with the running race mile marker symbol from the symbols library we looked at a moment ago. So I will just replace the layer name with the name of the symbol in the library. And then I'll replace the remaining points that I want to replace with the names of the symbols in the library that correspond to those layers. The US Highway, I'll replace with the State Highway Freeway symbol. And I'll replace the State Highways layer name with the State Route generic symbol name. If we go back to the symbols library, notice that I do have numbers in these symbols in the library. If the route numbers that I'm symbolizing in my map don't match the symbol's route number, that's totally fine. I can just edit the symbol after they get replaced. Going back to the map, I'll rename the road layer names to match the names of the brushes from the library we were just looking at. Starting with the race route, I'll give it the name Race Route Purple to match the brush name. I'm going to rename the freeways and highways and the traffic circle name with the State Highway 9 point. All the layers for the arterial roads will be renamed to match the name of the arterial's 3-point brush. I'm going to rename the local and service roads to my local roads brush name. If I expand the North America layer, I have this water layer inside of it, which has all the water polygons in my map. And I will rename the land use and facility areas to match the park's swatch name. And I will use my land pale yellow for the administrative areas. Let's do step 2. I'll go to the Processes tab in this extension, and I'll select Use Custom Symbols, Use Custom Brushes, and Use Custom Swatches. So now when I do step 3 and then come back to run this, it will replace those layers artwork with my custom symbols, brushes, and swatches. Step 3 is to point to the Illustrator symbol library files from the ArcGIS Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud settings. You can find the settings by going to the Mapboards tab as I have just done, and then choose Settings from the upper right menu. If it's not already selected, select Libraries. For each one of these entries, you will point to the appropriate Illustrator library. If I was only using the point symbology, I could leave the entries for the swatches and brushes blank. To find the library, simply click on this button and browse to its location on your computer. Now each one of these entries points to the libraries that I'm using to replace the symbology, so I'll click OK. Now I can go back to the Processes window to run these processes on my downloaded map. Now I have the common styles that I use for maps in this newspaper, and now I can make some edits in Illustrator to finalize this map and send it off to print. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the map on the left as it looked upon initial download and the final version after replacing the symbology from my Illustrator libraries and a few finalizing edits I did in Illustrator. A quick recap. In this video, I showed how ArcGIS Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud users can access and download the vector street map data to access the layer names for this vector base map. Then, you can conveniently use this extension to automatically replace your map default symbology even after download. Thanks for watching.